Dynasty Decisions, episode number 127, the second episode of the new format. Really appreciate the support you guys showed on the first video. As we talked about, we are now transitioning Dynasty Decisions over to site submissions. And because we're making that transition, we're giving out a couple of free vouchers per episode to you guys, especially if you haven't had a team covered, you've been following the series for a long time. Leave your Flock username down below. Reminder that you do have to have used promo code FSE for us to see you on the back end. And we'll fire out some vouchers to those of you guys who have been waiting for a while. But we got 5 teams to break down, Danny. Should be a lot of fun. And as we talked about last time, this is just a much better format, better advice for you, better viewing experience for those watching.
Yeah, a lot better aesthetic, and it really helps us in terms of being able to dive into the weeds of your league. And instead of making, like we said on the last video, generalized trade questions or potential opportunities that you can explore, we can actually see, okay, if this guy's competing, it's less likely that he'll give up his competing aging asset. If this guy's trying to tear it down, you're not getting that guy's future first from him. It's just simply not happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfectly better personalized advice than it was before. So I'm going to make us a little bit smaller so we can see the whole team here. Let's start things off with Riverflow, first team that we have here. He did say currently in a rebuild. He has the 102, wants some feedback on the direction that he should go in the draft and the year. 1 quarterback, 12 team, start 10, half PPR. Tiny little tight end premium there.
Yep.
His name, as you can see it there. I'm not going to repeat it. Don't want to get demonetized right away on this video, but you guys can see it on the screen there. 1 quarterback league. He's got Drake May, Bo Nix, Justin Fields to be perfectly fine with that. Worst running back core. Also, this My Teams feature that you guys can see here is totally free to use. You can sign up on the site with promo code FSE and use this feature without having to pay for anything. Lad McConkey, Rashee Rice, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen McMillan as his top receivers. Diggs, who just got a massive bag, who I got to move up in my rankings as a result. And Jatavian Sanders, Chigakonkwo as his tight ends. But as he kind of made reference to, he's rebuilding 102, 110, 206, 210, 212, a bunch of third rounders, a couple fourths, and an extra 1 and 2 in 2026. So the shell isn't quite fully functioned yet. We always talk about shell of a competitive team, shell of a rebuilding team, but you have a couple of pieces that should help further your rebuild here with the young receivers, with the young quarterbacks.
Yeah, especially too, you do what it shows there, have 2 extra 2026 first. Don't necessarily know where your own 2026 one went. That would be the only issue I would say is, especially knowing that you're at least, I would say, 2 years away from fully realizing your competing potential. I would do everything in my power to try to get that 2026 one back. You treat this year as another tanking year. Obviously, you have the shell, like you said, with once that 102, 110 plus those seconds assets end up materializing into year 2. And I do think by 2026, if you play your cards right and you get your own first back, you could really turn this thing into a really solid team.
Yeah, let's take a look where his 1 is, because he's got the first of freaking Cappers and the Treat King. Let's see. Yep. So freaking Cappers,
the best team in the league.
Best team in the league, probably was a very competitive team, maybe even won the championship. So obviously that pick is probably going to project as probably late. This guy does have, you have his first, which is not looking terrible. It's 2026.
Quarterbacks.
I mean, no quarterbacks, has a couple of injuries. Like, it's very possible that you end up getting a good pick out of his first. Let me try and track down your own first here. It looks like this guy has your first, this Baby Treats guy who has kind of a no man's land team at the moment where he's got a bunch of picks, but he doesn't really have a whole lot going on for him. You could maybe convince this guy like that because he has Saquon and like some of these competitive assets, you could probably convince him to give you your own first back in exchange for somebody that's going to help him win potentially this year. Maybe he's interested in Stephon Diggs now because he, just signed a big contract with the Patriots. Maybe his value is going up a little bit. I doubt you're going to get him for Stephon Diggs, the first round pick that is, but maybe Diggs plus the 110 gets you your own first, or Diggs plus a couple of like a second rounder plus another competitive piece gets you your own first back, something like that.
Yeah, or you can go the Ayuk route, or the other route that I'd say that also makes sense, because when you go up to that guy's team that has all those picks, as you can see, like he's got like a team that maybe he wants to try to at least see what the production will give him. Because I'm just like looking across the board. When you have Hurts, when you have Barkley, you have AJ Brown, you have those 3 Eagles players. Obviously, Jake Ferguson maybe gets healthier this year, bounces back. Isaiah Likely, who knows, maybe Mark Andrews takes a step down. Like, I can see him at least convincing himself that he can try to compete with this team. So what I would also look at is, obviously, if you can, the Stephon Diggs plus deal, the Brandon Ayuk plus deal, that would be your first avenue. But the other direction I might look at, especially knowing how strong you are at wide receiver, would be potentially seeing how many of those 2026 ones you can get for the 102 asset that you have.
Yeah, no, that would definitely make some sense as well, because that 102 asset, I mean, As of now, we're kind of assuming it'll be Tet McMillan, Travis Hunter, somebody like that. But you never know. Somebody like Hampton gets great draft capital landing spot. He might be the 102 there. You're probably more in a position to be adding receivers than running backs at this point in time. He also, like, I won't even say this guy should think he can compete. I actually do think he can, because he has Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, James Cook, Derrick Henry, Chuba Hubbard. Like those 4 running backs that he has are going to be really productive this year. Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, AJ Brown. And it's the nice thing for him too, or for you, I guess, is his biggest weakness is wide receiver depth right now. So Stephon Diggs kind of fits his build a little bit, especially if he's buying into he's ahead of schedule and all this kind of stuff. I don't think it should cost you that much more than Steph Diggs, 206, and maybe he wants a 2026 too on top of that or something like that. I really do think you might be able to get your first for a little bit of a bargain, knowing that this guy might be motivated to compete. And Diggs just got a big contract from a team that is kind of on the up and up. You have to break up your stack there. Obviously, you already have Drake May, but Diggs doesn't fit your window. You're not really in a position to use the best of what Stephon Diggs can provide to you, which will be his next 1 to 2 years of production.
So I'm plugging it in on the flock calculator just to kind of get an evaluation. So according to the expert source on the Dynasty rankings tab, and you know what? I'll actually share my screen as well, just to make it easier for you guys to kind of relate here. When we do plug this in by the experts, by the Dynasty rankings, by the Dynasty settings, sorry, if you can get a deal 102 plus McMillan, and you can get, including your own first round pick, which I put at early to mid, all those 3 firsts in 2026 that he has, say, hey, listen, you need wide receiver depth. I'm offering you, obviously, the opportunity at 102. You can get a Tet McMillan. You can get a Travis Hunter to be a high-end option. And then we saw, you could point to the fact that we saw Jalen McMillan down the stretch last year really start commanding targets, rookie player. We know Tampa Bay wants to throw the football. That'd be a direction you go. He gets his wide receiver depth on a team that we both think that could potentially compete. And you all end up cashing in here on the 3 first-round picks. So that's just maybe a thought.
Yeah, for sure. And then again, the Diggs one would be my first avenue, because you get an old player off of your team, and then you also potentially can get your own first back. But regardless, I think just the direction of this team, that was his original question. Like, what is the direction looking like? Want some feedback, what he should do into the draft and what he should do going into the season. Obviously, with all the picks that you have, if you're able to stick and pick with those, maneuver the board, you have a lot of draft capital. You can move up, you can move down, so on and so forth. In terms of pick strategy, for me, 102, I would probably want to get Hunter or McMillan, just given the structure of your team. But I'm not going to, throw a fit if you have to take Amari and Hampton, who's the 20th pick to the Broncos or something like that in the draft. Either 110, 206, 210, 212. You're going to probably be in a nice honeypot to weave in some of those running backs from this class. Maybe you catch Caleb Johnson at the 110, or you catch Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, somebody like that at 110. Then at 206, you throw in a Cam Scadaboo, or you throw in a Jaden Higgins, or you throw in a Trey Harris with good draft capital or something like that. In a 1 quarterback league, obviously you're set. You don't have to worry about Drake May, Bo Nix, Justin Fields. You're totally set at quarterback for the long term. You're just kind of taking best player available at wide receiver and running back. And for what it's worth too, 110, probably a pick that you maybe want to decide to use on a tight end, just given that you have Jatavian Sanders, Chigakonkwo, 206, 210, and 212. Again, if any of those tight ends were to slide to there, I think they would be absolute smash spots for you as well.
I would also be willing to move up from the 206 to the 210, assuming it costs maybe 1 or 2 of those thirds, to go ensure that you have another pick as close to the turn as you can. Because if you compare one of the top 5 running backs there potentially falls to you at the 110, let's just say Cam Ward goes above, maybe Shadur Sanders ends up going in the top 10 and a league mate of yours takes him at the 108. And now you got a situation where Travion Henderson with 51st overall draft capital to the Denver Broncos falls to you at the 110. Like, I want to, like, that range, I want to use that 110 on one of the top 5 running backs if they were to fall. And then, like I said, if you can trade back up 206 to like the 201 or 202, or 210 to the 201 or 202 to make sure you get a Tyler Warner, Colson Loveland, I think that'd be your best interest.
Yeah, I think it's probably unlikely that those quarterbacks are going to go high in a 1 quarterback format. I think.
Oh, it's 1 quarterback. My apologies.
In a super flex league, they probably both go ahead of the 110. But I think in a 1 quarterback, you'd be pretty much praying that Caleb Johnson or something fell to you at the 110, or Matthew Golden or somebody like that were to fall to you. But regardless, I think you're pretty well set up given the capital that you have. I wish you had like 1 extra mid first this year to help kind of really complete this thing. But I do think if you're able to hit on your picks, address the tight end position, address a wide receiver or 2, like 1 more high-end guy or 2, you should be pretty set at that position. And then weave in some of these 206, 210, 212, 302, 304, 312 picks on running backs. And who knows, maybe you hit the next Bucky Irving or Tyrone Tracy, and you kind of luck into your future RB2, 3, 4 kind of asset. And then in 2026, maybe you're able to add a real hammer at that position with the capital you have.
It's funny you mentioned that because obviously, for those of you that are unsure, obviously Corey knows, but we recently started our Star 12 Best Ball Dynasty startup that we started this offseason. And it got to the point in those mid-teens rounds where I'm like, do I really want to take a player here? Because like I can just grab a few of these thirds, and in a best ball league, I can just hit on these players. Like if they hit, that's just so much more valuable.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but to me, I look historical hit rates wise of the 301 to the 412 in most rookie classes, and there's like
In a best ball league,
hits. There's like 2 to 3 hits though every year. Like it's not really that good of a hit rate, and you guys were passing on some players that I thought were going to give you weeks.
Like who though? It was like round 15, round 16 in a startup. I would just take the liquidity at that point, because if you try to sell those players on the open market for third round picks, sometimes you're not even getting that.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. That's totally fair for sure.
Well, side tangent.
Side tangent. We could probably move on to the next team here, which is from Dr. Brian Harris. We can go into this one. OG classic. That's why he ended up getting a voucher as well. What do I do with the 102? I stick and pick and feel like Cam Ward is the choice. Feels like a stud wide receiver to be set, though. And how can I get a stud wide receiver with his assets?
Well,
so his team is
in really
good
valuing Cam Ward at the 102 to begin with.
Neither am I, especially not with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray already on my roster either.
Yeah.
And Jordan Addison is your wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah, I think it's, at least for me, that 102 asset, you already mentioned it at the top. Again, 2 quarterback, 12 teams, start 9 half PPR leagues. So start 9, you just kind of want high end assets. And right now, obviously, you got like good depth at wide receiver, I would say. You know, you got obviously Jordan Addison's got some upside, but does he really have a top 12 level ceiling? Probably not. Tyreek Hill could potentially get back up there, but he's also an aging asset that has hinted at retiring. DK Metcalf, I mean, if on the Pittsburgh Steelers he became a top 8 to 10 wide receiver again, I would still be shocked, to be honest. Like for me at this point with DK, I've kind of accepted he's probably going to be a top 20 to 25 yearly option, which is fine, but also in a start 9, like we said, kind of not the most ideal situation. Then, I mean, Brandon Ayuk's coming off that ACL. So that 102 asset, you mentioned it, but it has to be pigeonholed at an elite wide receiver, whether that is Ted McMillan or whether that's using the 102 to potentially go and get a Marvin Harrison Jr., a Drake London, I mean, maybe like a Lab McConkey you can get up to there. Like, obviously, like if you can get it to the top 8 and you add a little piece, that would be the most ideal situation, because you do kind of need that star headliner. But that would be the first direction I go. It's just kind of seeing what that 102 is worth, if it's available in trade, and if you're not getting the type of offers you like, going and sticking and picking Ted McMillan.
Yeah, this guy, I mean, can the 102 get you to St. Brown? It's potentially, in a class that has a lot of hype behind it, especially at the top. If Hunter plays wide receiver, Ted McMillan, blah, blah, blah. Running back wise, maybe this guy feels like he needs more running backs. This guy's got a really shallow team, so he might be thinking, hey, maybe I need to dismantle an asset like St. Brown, and you can get it for 102 plus another piece or something. This guy has so many good receivers on his team. Doubt you're getting anywhere near Neighbors or Jefferson, but like you said, Harrison might be available for the 102 or whatever. So I feel pretty good about the shell that you have constructed here. And with 102, I'd definitely be looking in the direction of a wide receiver. I'd probably, for what it's worth, to be looking in the direction of a wide receiver for 202 as well. Yeah. And potentially 206, 208. Like you should be in Jaden Higgins, Elikai Manor, Trey Harris territory there. And if you can grab Jaden Higgins, who was like the 38th pick in the draft, to the Raiders with the 202 or whatever, that's a pretty good haul if you walk out of this class with Ted McMillan and Jaden Higgins.
And the other thing I'm looking at in a potential deal with the 102 to get a wide receiver, or like we said, if you're drafting a player there. So scroll to the tight end rankings. I want to see who's got the worst tight end room, and if they have a receiver that's really worth the par.
This guy doesn't have a very good tight end core. Jake Ferguson, Jatavian Sanders. Like he has Smith and Jigba, T. Higgins, Rashee Rice. Like Waddle's probably a decent buy low at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I'm saying this, so if I can take a 102 plus TJ Hawkinson, I just kind of want to see how much I would have to add on here by the calculator. Okay. Like, can you add 102 Hawkinson, and then if you have to add the 202, you do it for Brian Thomas Jr. on that team?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good shout. This guy too has McConkey and Olave. Like how close does Hawkinson straight get you to Olave? Like you might be able to get relatively close to Olave just with Hawkinson there.
Yeah, 102 plus a piece plus Hawkinson, even for Ladd and Olave. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. Like something along those lines is the type of move I'd be seeking out. Like just go to a team. Like, I mean, Travis Kelce is another prime example. Straight up, can you get Drake London for the 102 Hawkinson, and then he maybe even throws a piece back? Like, what piece would you need back on that?
I don't think he has a good enough piece, to be honest, on this team.
Well,
I honestly, what I would be more in the market of doing is trying to get a good receiver option and hoping you can hit on a Ted McMillan or a Travis Hunter with the 102, and then getting a Chris Olave or whatever using Hawkinson, like whether it's Hawkinson plus his 206 or something for Chris Olave, I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I don't think it would actually even cost that much, knowing like what's going on with the concussion issues and stuff like that. I think you might even be able to get a discount. But overall, I mean, there's a reason why your team is the number one team on the analyzer by the My Team feature. Just having Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, along with, I mean, you have the RB1 in Dynasty, obviously Devon Achane. Like this team across the board, aside from having a true nail, set it and forget it franchise cornerstone at wide receiver, you're in a good spot, because I mean, you have literally 2 of the top 5 tight ends as well.
Yeah, dude. Like you if McMillan turns into an elite wide receiver, you grab, Jaden Higgins, and he ends up turning into a great wide receiver 3 for you in Dynasty. Even like suddenly your receiver core is complete, and your running back core is elite. Your quarterback top 2 guys are excellent, and you're able to kind of be on your merry way. So pretty good about the rest of the team that you've built out. So we could probably move on to the next team unless you have anything to add on this one.
No, I think we pretty much summed it up. Obviously, Dr. Brian Harris knows what he's doing. He's been watching Dynasty Decisions, submitting to Dynasty Decisions for a while now. And yeah, just get that anchor wide receiver and you're golden.
Yeah. So this next team it's gonna take us some time. It's gonna
everything
take us
has chips in it.
Yeah, everything has chips in it. And if you notice,
this
guy is down at the bottom of the My Teams feature. So we're gonna take a look at this team. He said,
I'll say one thing. Typically, when it's your first Dynasty League, you don't want to be taking an orphan for your first one, but we'll help you get there.
Yeah, definitely. Orphans are more of a experienced Dynasty player thing, and I've seen plenty of experienced Dynasty players never get out of the sand with an orphan. And this league is extremely monster heavy by the looks of it. Like this guy's team, this Chip Kelly stand guy. Let's take a look at it.
He's got fucking 5 or 6x the valuation of the orphan you took.
Not to mention, like his team is a running back or 2 away, and he's going to get 2 in this year's class with Genty and Judkins, Henderson, something like that. This guy's team's going to be virtually unbeatable. Josh Allen,
Daniels, and
Jalen Hurts is insanely good quarterback production for this guy. So not a good position to be in.
Go back up quickly. I know it's not the video for fucking Chip Kelly, Stan, but he's also just randomly got a Michael Penix that he could trade for just straight liquidity because he does not need him at all.
Yeah, no, he's in great shape. However, are not in great shape, because all you have that's worth anything is CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Devontae Smith, and TJ Hawkinson, and then everybody else on your roster is pretty much useless. Speaking of taking over orphans, the challenging thing about taking over an orphan, if it's experienced Dynasty players especially, is your only hope is to sell everybody and anything.
You have to strip it down to these studs. Like I'm talking, like when you look at this roster and the next time you submit it to the My Teams feature, I want to see just straight, what is that color in the background? Gray? Like I just want to see straight gray when it says QB rank, running back rank, wide receiver rank, tight end. There should be nobody on this roster, and it should be solely picks. Because quite frankly, when you're in this much of a deficit and there's that type of monster in your league, the only hope that you have to catch up to that guy is banking every year, hitting on the Bucky Irvings, the Tyrone Tracy's, the studs in every rookie draft that appear in the first, second, and third round. You have to be the one drafting them. The only way you can position yourself to be able to do so. I'm sorry, CJ Stroud. I'm sorry, Dak Prescott. I'm sorry, TJ Hawkinson, Devontae Smith, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift. I already said DeAndre Swift. Ramondre Stevenson, anybody else, Dalton Kincaid, anybody that has any inkling of value. Obviously, again, you're not going to sell for 70 cents on the dollar, but you are a motivated seller.
I'll take 90 cents on the dollar. For
90 cents on the dollar is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, like in an ideal world, you probably want 2 1s for CJ Stroud, but if all you can get is a 27 first, a 27 second, and 2/3 in this year's class, that might be all you can get, right? Like you said, your only hope at this point in time is to be able to hit on your rookie picks and turn this roster around in the future, because you're not thinking like the biggest mistake people get themselves into when they take over orphans is thinking they can turn it around in one off season or thinking they can turn it around quickly. Like, you have to realize how bad this team is.
I have some Dynasty startups that I will literally spend 2 years rebuilding. Just because I know, okay, I don't have the urgency to compete right now. Obviously, again, if you're in a situation where it's like that $50 up front for the buy and you kind of want to, that's one thing. But for me, it's like, okay, maybe I sacked the $100 in the first 2 years. But then, for example, in the experts league that I've mentioned to you, like when I win year 3, like now I have by far the most dominant team in the league, just won this past year and just got Josh Allen this offseason. So like even teams that I've positioned well, I take my time with, because there's no need to rush until you're fully certain that your team is telling you that it's ready to compete.
Yeah, this is by 2027, let's start talking about you potentially having a decent chance of competing. And that is only if you draft well in 25 and 26 as well. You're not going to get there by drafting poorly. That'll set you back another year.
Yeah, no, exactly. So what else did he say in the top? Let's just kind of read through it, because I'm well versed in redraft, but I need some guidance on Dynasty. The team is obviously a rebuild, but I need some help around how to go about it, whether that's trying to acquire or what. Appreciate y'all and look forward to hearing back. Yeah, it's not even just 2025 ones. It's 2026, 2027. Even if they're offering 2028 ones at your rookie draft this year, you have to be getting as much value as you can. This has to be a straight liquidity team. Like we're talking a team where at times you're going to be in bye weeks during the season thinking, oh shit, I actually don't have a usable player to put in my spot.
Yeah, like you need to guarantee that you're going to get the 101 in 2026. Once you get the 101 in 2026, you probably want to be fielding offers for said 101. Let's say Arch Manning has a monster year for Texas and he ends up being a Caleb Williams caliber quarterback prospect or something. Then you're going to be trying to sell him, trying to trade down, get picks. Like I wouldn't even, for right now, 2025 picks are probably off the table. Your league mates already know who the players are. Yeah. They know who the prospects are. They know how good the class is. They know where the value pockets are. Unless they're completely brain dead and have no idea what's going on right now, you should be looking at 27 specifically, because we are expecting a couple of really high-end prospects at the top of that class. 25, 26, if you can get those first, obviously that's great, but shoot, like Danny said, 27 and 28 first if you're able to get them. Unfortunately, for some people too, before you take over an orphan, make sure you are able to trade picks into the future, because sometimes people take over orphans and you can't even trade for 26 ones until people are bought in.
I'll never understand, obviously, like, you know, certain leagues have certain rules, but like at the same time, it's like, how do you ever expect a team to get out of an orphan state if you're cutting off their access to resources?
Yeah, like in Too Lazy to Set lineups, you remember the best ball startup that we did a couple of years ago? My team was not good. I didn't draft very well in the startup, and I pivoted midway through the first season, and all I did was collect 25 ones, and we drafted that team before the 2023 season, and now I have 6 2025 ones going into this class, and my team is actually starting to materialize with Jefferson, with Marvin, with some of the assets I was able to collect. So you really do have to, when you're in an orphan situation, think, what can I do now to help my competitive window 3 years from now? Because that's pretty much what you're thinking. You're not thinking about, oh, I'm going to go pick up like Tony Pollard because I think he's undervalued on the market. Like he doesn't help you in 3 years. There's absolutely no reason to trade for a guy like Tony Pollard.
No, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's going to be a slow process. It's going to be a slow grind. You're going to want to pull your hair out at times trying to message some of your league mates, because you're going to ask if they're interested in making a deal, and then they'll say yes, but then you'll try to message them to make a deal and they'll just not respond. Trust me, like when you're a motivated seller and the buyers just aren't even in a mode to buy yet, it's probably the most frustrating thing in the world, because it's like, dude, like I have this asset. What's going on here? Like you should be motivated to buy, come and buy. And yes, I'm venting out some more personal vendettas right now, because holy fuck, it's my biggest pet peeve in Dynasty. If you say you're interested and then talks like don't go anywhere because you're not contributing to the conversation. Anyways, regardless, like it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be annoying. You're going to be at your desk sometimes wishing that the offers would come through. You got to make it happen. You have to. Otherwise, I mean, this is how orphan teams never come back from the dead.
Yeah, and also you can't be stingy with some of these players. You can't be like, in an ideal world, I want a first and a second for Devontae Smith. If all you're getting is a 27 first, then you probably should take it. That's pretty much where you're at with this team. Yeah. And as far as this is an important part of orphan strategy too, is targeting the teams that you should probably be targeting are teams that are not in a good position, like this one, for example, who think they're in a good position and aim for his 27-1 because he doesn't have his 26-1 or his 25-1, 2, or 3, or his 26-1, 2, or 3. So there's a very good chance that this guy's going to be crumbling in the near future. You want to be there rising from the ashes with the 27 first overall pick that he might have. If you don't have it, he'll probably have it. So you want to be in a position to target some teams that are in a similarly dire situation, only they're less patient than you. Or you want to target some teams that maybe have a lot of really, really competitive assets, older assets now, who by 27, by 28 are going to have to rebuild at that point in time.
Yeah. Also, I mean, respectfully, if you go look at the analyzer, dude, holy crap. Like, obviously, even outside of the second highest value team in the league is basically half of number one.
Yeah. I wonder if this actually has Chip Kelly in the league. It just seems funny that they all have like Chip and like Chip Kelly and Chip Kelly Stan, real Chip. Maybe they're all Ohio State fans or something like that, or Eagles fans. I have no idea, but it's funny to me that there's like Chip Kelly references all over this league.
Yeah, no, for sure. But overall, anyways. Yeah, it's going to take a while. Sorry, we kind of strung it on a little bit, but I mean, that's pretty much the big takeaway that you have here is this is not a one off season thing. Probably not going to be a 2 off season thing. You're going to need 3 off seasons to truly make a dent on this team because, quite frankly, whoever the fuck had this thing before you did their best impression of trying to tear it down without actually getting stuff in return.
Yeah, like how you don't have the 25-101.
You don't have your own one? Like,
yeah,
what?
That's
what did he do with it? Did he spend it on Jahan Dotson? Like, what are we doing? Like, yeah, sorry, it's not you, but like, it's I. That's another pet peeve is I hate people that leave teams like this and then leave the league.
Yeah, and you got to get your assets that have any point production whatsoever off of your team. Again, in an ideal world, you get a mid-second for Ramondre Stevenson, but if all you're getting offered is a 28-second, guess what? You're taking a 28-second. Oh, yeah. That's pretty much what you gotta. That's what you got to go with.
Yeah, fuck. We could be talking about kids that are playing grade 9 football right now that you are in tune with because that is about the competing period for you. Sorry, it took a while to spit that out.
There you go. Ambiguity. Dedicated subscriber of ours. Again, for those of you guys wondering,
he's like the other guy in this league.
Yeah, he is. This is a stark difference of it's almost exactly the same chart, except he's at the top and the other guy's at the bottom. We'll spend less time on this one, obviously, but if you're wondering why, Ambiguity got a voucher and you guys maybe didn't, if you submitted your stuff down below, Ambiguity has been a loyal site subscriber of ours, so we might favor those people if you guys have been site subscribers before, but nonetheless, we'll probably fire out some vouchers to people who have just signed up for an account or whatever. And we'll get vouchers out to as many as we can each episode. This is the team. It is going to be a pretty easy conversation here because this is a loaded roster with Neighbors, Collins, Harrison, AJ Brown, JSN, Rashee Rice, George Pickens at wide receiver. Tight end, you don't have anybody really, but you can basically have the luxury to go buy one if you want one. One-on-one, you're going to be adding the Ashton Genty, hammer to Jahmyr Gibbs already. Running back depth is an issue at this point in time, but you have some draft picks this year to be able to make that up. You already have Mahomes, Drake May, Brock Purdy, JJ McCarthy. I would suggest shopping one of those quarterbacks, probably Purdy, if any of them, maybe JJ McCarthy as well. But Brock Purdy, probably the one that I would shop personally. And then, fill out a tight end at this position and get some running back depth in the draft. And you're going to be on your merry way to a championship contention window. And speaking of too, like, do you need George Pickens on this team? No. Like if George Pickens plus JJ McCarthy is enough to get you anywhere near Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, then you go ahead and do that.
That's actually what I was going to suggest. Can you show me the team that has Trey McBride? Because I think Trey McBride is actually the clear target for me here. Trey McBride. So this guy is pretty set at wide receiver, but doesn't have a quarterback. Yeah, like do you have any running backs that you can move depth, or is it more so just the wide receivers?
He has no running back depth whatsoever.
Okay, never mind then. So yeah, I mean, like, would he accept McCarthy plus Pickens for Trey McBride here? Like, what
I would do instead is, because he doesn't really have any good tight ends on his team, but he actually has 2 guys that are semi-interesting to the right buyer. Maybe you give him McCarthy and Kincaid, or McCarthy and Pitts. And
you could try, but I doubt it.
I know those guys don't seem to have any value, but they're tight end, 10 for a lot of people in Dynasty. So maybe you're able to get near McBride using some of those players. And maybe if you want to balance out the trade, it's Trey McBride in the 205 for Brock Purdy and Kyle Pitts, if he's a super big Kyle Pitts guy, or Dalton Kincaid or something like that.
I doubt anybody would accept that. Like,
okay, well, even if it's McCarthy and Pickens for McBride and nothing else on top of it, I would probably still do it.
Yeah, because I was plugging it into the calculator. McCarthy plus Pickens for McBride, according to the experts, would be a fair trade. So
yeah, it is a non-tight end premium for what it's worth.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, going big at this position would be smart, in my opinion. Like, obviously, we're big, like, hey, David Njoku is an awesome buy low right now. I think Sam Laporta is a good buy low right now. But Brock Bowers is on a team that has nobody else. Like, you send
that
this
team
guy,
is urine. Yeah.
Yeah, like this guy might be looking to lock down a quarterback, give him JJ McCarthy because he's a young quarterback, and who knows how much more on top of McCarthy. Like, I'd be willing to give up JJ McCarthy,
Pickens in the one.
Pitts, Pickens, and second for Bowers in this situation on this team.
Like, yeah, did it say? Sorry, you had the 102. He had the 102, correct? Ambiguity?
He has the 101,
the 101.
Oh my 5. So I would ideally like to hold on to those picks because he does need running back depth.
Yeah.
And 101, you're going to get Genty. 105, hopefully you get Henderson, Judkins, Hampton, somebody like that. Ideally, I wouldn't want to mess with those picks, but if you can somehow get to Brock Bowers without tampering with those picks, that would be great.
In a start 9, like, also just consolidate those wide receivers if you can. Like, will AJ Brown plus Rashee Rice get you fucking close to the top 6 overall wide receivers in Dynasty? Like, will JSN plus Marvin Harrison Jr. get you Justin? Like, I'm willing to just spend big on this team because in a start 9 half PPR league, like, you have so much depth at wide receiver to the point where you don't need it.
This guy has Nakua and Chase and doesn't have a whole lot else at wide receiver. Yeah. Maybe you can offer this guy AJ Brown and Rashee Rice for Puka Nakua and see if he does it.
Dude, gluttony. That's your team. It's just gluttony. It's embarrassment of riches. Like, you have the opportunity to overpay for stuff just because you can. Straight up.
Yeah.
Like you're in a situation now where your league is so far behind the 8 ball. And first and foremost, you're going to probably have to overpay in some deals because teams are going to see your team and think, why the fuck would I help this guy? No, if you're going to pay for my market, I'm going to charge you 120% versus 100% I would charge to the guy that's maybe the 6th highest valuation in the My Team's feature.
Yeah, we know all about tariffs here in Canada.
Oh,
so we you might have to pay some you have the best team in the league tariffs.
I've quite literally gotten responses before that is, your offer is fair, but I don't want to make your team better. I've literally gotten responses to trade offers where even offers that, like, I've in the initial, like, overpaid, like, even by my own rankings, I'll plug it in and say, oh, like, you're actually kind of a loser here. It's like, okay, but I'm in a situation where I can give up this type of value. I will literally get responses, ooh, but I don't really want to help you. Like, it's crazy.
I've had a couple people tell me, hey, you need to overpay for this, and I have in some cases, like you said, because
sometimes you have to.
If you got to overpay by a 2nd round rookie pick because your team's the best in the league, then you got to overpay by a 2nd round rookie pick or whatever. So again, we don't need to spend much time on this. Ambiguity's in great spot. He can do kind of whatever he wants to at this point.
That's another thing to the previous team. If you are selling everything, make the rate for the guy that had the 45K My Team valuation probably 120% of the rest of the league because you don't want to help that guy out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he even has a good enough assets that
that's
he's
good point.
Beating his door down for CJ Stroud or Devontae Smith. But
that's fair.
Maybe he is. Who knows? Maybe he has Collins and he wants to stack or something like that. But anyways, Ambiguity's in great spot. We don't really need to talk about his team anymore. Let's get into Hubsy.
Yeah, big shout out Hubsy.
So he said, first off, thanks for the voucher. I've been watching for 3 years now, hoping to get a review, but been tight on cash. So I'm glad we were able to get a voucher to somebody who has been waiting to have a team covered for a long time. Started his own Dynasty League with friends, and it's been a blast going Genty and Hampton, other first-round running backs. Any suggestions for trades and which path should he take? So he is number two on the valuation here. He mentioned 101 and 102. That feels really, really nice. And again, I guess this is the Kyle Pitts episode, but not really great at the tight end position. You got 3 young guys that maybe one of them hits, maybe they don't. We don't actually know. I actually drafted Ben Sinnott in our startup the other day. Drake May, Kyler Murray is the top 2 quarterbacks. Kind of, you have your RB 3 through 6, but no RB 1 or 2. But like you said, Genty's going to get added to this team. He mentions he wants to take Hampton with this team. I would say the only way I would take Hampton over Tet McMillan or Travis Hunter is if Hunter is playing wide cornerback most of the time. Let me ask you this, Danny, just as a side tangent here. Would you take Omari and Hampton on a team that, let's say, needed running back more than wide receiver if Travis Hunter was playing full-time wide receiver? Is there any landing spot, draft capital level that Hampton would have to get to that you would take him over Hunter?
I mean, in my own personal rankings, if Hunter got announced as a full-time wide receiver, Hunter would probably be in contention to be my 101.
So if Hampton goes 12 to the Cowboys and Hunter goes 4 to the Patriots or 2 to the Browns or 5 to the Jaguars, but they're going to play him wide receiver or something like that.
Hunter, I could be loaded at wide receiver and still take Hunter because he's still got the potential to be the best of any wide receiver core that I have. And I'm including wide receiver cores that have Chase, that have Jefferson. I think Travis Hunter's upside could be not even the best wide receiver in the league, but like almost undisputably the best wide receiver in the league. Like I think that's the level.
Hunter might have upside to be close to the 101 in startups.
I agree. I straight up, like I have not seen a guy with this amount of fluidity, this amount of like cardio too, like being able to play both sides at that. Dude, I saw another stat, by the way. So his expected yards per route run compared to the other fucking prospects in this class was lower because a lot of the sets that they were using with Colorado with him on the field, because obviously keep in mind, he's playing with a partial playbook because he's playing defense full time with 3, 4, 5 wide receiver sets. He didn't play in a lot of 2 wide receiver sets at Colorado. Could you imagine in the NFL, he's just playing outside boundary wide receiver and 12 personnel, and he's funneling 50% of his team's targets?
Yeah, it'd be crazy too, because you actually think about not like Colorado had great receivers, but LeJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn, Will Shepherd, like they might get drafted. Like they're not nobodies. I
think it was Roma, I believe that tweet. It was or Football Insights. It was one of those 2 accounts, by the way, both great follows on Twitter, that tweeted out his expected yards per route run, and everybody's like, okay, what's the context to take away? The context is that it's very freaking hard to earn yards when 4 or 5 wide receivers are on the field. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, especially when you're not even in the meeting room with that position group like we talked about. But anyways, side tangent aside, Hunter, obviously, we wouldn't encourage, like my point was this. I wouldn't encourage you to just lock in Genty and Hampton with these 2 picks. I would say do your due diligence, try and trade down if you really do want Hampton. You could probably go down to 103 or 104 and still get him.
If you draft, like, let's say Hunter got announced wide receiver, you draft him at the 1. Can you not trade JSN for a 103, 104 type of pick and just grab a running back anyways?
Yeah, like you could sell JSN probably straight up for Devon Achane or Breece Hall in the open market.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that route too, of course.
Yeah, so this is a team that's in pretty good shape to, if you hit on these first 2 rookie picks and maybe you find a diamond in the rough in the 3rd round, you got the 302, 303, 304. Let's say you hit on the next Bucky Irving or Tyrone Tracy in this year's class. I promise you we will get some of them in this running back class. There's a lot of good dudes. If you're wondering how to rebuild your running back core pretty quickly, pretty cheap, I would say collect 3rd round picks is a good idea on how to do that in rookie drafts this year. Then yeah, this is going to be a team ready to compete. I actually really like some of the running backs that you have as depth. I don't think that any of them are studs at this point in time. Charbonnet, Benson, Javonte, Jerome Ford, Audric Estime. Like 1 or 2 of these guys will be usable fantasy assets to go along with Genty. And let's say you do take Hampton because he goes, 12th overall to the Cowboys or something like that. You're going to be in pretty good shape at that point in time. So I feel pretty good about the way that you've built out this team. Again, I'm also glad we're able to get you a review because you've been waiting for a long time. He does also have an extra 1 in 2026 as well that he has to play with. If let's say we go into the season and Pitts is having a bounce back year and the wide receiver core is looking good and the running back core is hitting and the rookies are doing well and Drake May and Kyler Murray are taking steps and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, maybe you go for a competitive asset. This is kind of more of a house money type of build for me.
Yeah, I would agree as well. The other avenue, first and foremost, that we didn't mention that I definitely think we should, can Pitts plus those 3 threes, honestly, in a start 10, I'm willing to give up all 3 threes, especially considering the fact that you're going to be revamping your running back core with the 101 asset plus either the 102 or if you get Hunter, trading.
Plus, I actually like his depth at wide receiver and running back too.
Well, that's what I mean. So, like, can you take Pitts plus those 3 threes and go get like the 202? What do you think the realistic equivalent cost would be for Pitts plus those 3 threes?
Yeah, and I think I like some of your other depth wide receivers to the point that what is Pitts and McMillan and Coker enough to get you into a tight end that's usable range too?
That's what I mean. It's because
you have guys that actually have value. Like I know Tillman and Coker and QJ and McMillan aren't like studs, but they're definitely valuable kind of mid-2 caliber pieces for the right people.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, overall, you do say, yeah, it's your first submission, but we can tell you've been watching for 3 years because he positioned this team extremely well. Yeah, there is one team. I mean, we could take a look at the Beats by Ray team just to kind of see what our main competition is. So it looks like
1, by the way, too, in 26. That was the one that he had.
So that's the one that you have. And it looks like for the most part, he's got wide receiver figured out and he's got his main quarterback one figured out, but he still has to work. Even though first and foremost, I do want to say this is the only issue with the analyzer sometimes is it doesn't really take into account balance on teams. It just takes strict value. So you'll see this guy is the number one valuation, but you'll see, yeah, he still has a lot of holes to realistically fill on his roster before he is a top end contender. So for me personally, I would say just from a strict competitive standpoint, when you add the running backs this offseason, I would say from a pure production versus production standpoint, I would actually rank your team above Beats by Ray.
Yeah, and part of that is because in a hypothetical universe, he could trade
the wide receivers,
Brian Thomas, Nico Collins into more competitive assets if he wanted to. That's why the value, because we know, 100%. Especially in a start 10 or a start 9 or a start 8 or whatever, like having those high-end assets, you know inherently that you could tear them into better competitive pieces and more competitive pieces if you wanted to. It's just having those pieces who are high-end startup picks. Yeah. If you went into a startup and you had 3 thirds and 2 2s and 2 1s, you're going to inherently come out with a better team than the person who has their regular startup assets.
Yeah, and good thing for you in the league too that this guy also didn't ask for a team review, because the first thing we would tell him is, take your Zay Flowers, take your Jordan Addison, take your whatever, because it's a start 10 league, and try to consolidate into a stud running back. But hopefully for your guys' case is that he doesn't do that, because right now, again, like I said, I do think your team outproduces his from a season perspective.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to hammer home, because I mentioned him earlier in the video, is David Njoku's such a cheap tight end option right now. There's leagues that you could trade fucking Jalen McMillan for him, I bet. Like, there's definitely leagues out there that you could, like, Jalen McMillan's like wide receiver 35 to 45 in most people's minds. David Njoku in our startup didn't go that much different in terms of his overall rank, and that would pretty much solve your tight end position, in my opinion, between having the 3 depth players that you have that are young guys and having Njoku as your competitive dude. I think you'd be set at tight end and you'd be ready to go there. So that's why I never get like too bent out of shape at the tight end position, is where I'm like, oh man, like I don't really have a tight end. It's like, well, you have a deep tight end class and you have 3 3s. You could definitely take a swing on Arroyo or Mason Taylor, somebody like that, Harold Fannin, with one of those picks. You also always have the option, I found in dynasty leagues, to send an early 2 for David Njoku or George Kittle. Like every year it's on the table that you can do it. Like, I don't know about you, but every single dynasty league I've been in where I've come out of a house money window, you're like, okay, well, it's time to buy David Njoku or George Kittle now.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It just seems to be that they're always worth early 2s.
Yeah, like I'm looking at it right now. So Njoku went actually at the 9.7 in our startup, and we're at what, a 1.5 premium, or 0.5 premium. So 1.5.
Yeah, to be fair, the rest of the room was kind of fading tight ends too. So maybe he goes higher than that in most regular tight end premium leagues. Yeah,
the only one I would say is like Kraft went above him. I think that would only be the one I disagree with. But like aside from that, like Kittle went at the 8.8, Hawkinson at the 7.11. I mean, even like I know you've been more of an advocate for Laporta, but I would say that you got a good value on him here at the 5.6.
Yeah, I took him in the mid-5th, which I thought was like pretty good value for a tight end premium league.
And I think part of it too is the meta strategy of a best ball. It's a start 12 best ball. So for example, I mean, I'll tell you straight up, my strategy was literally just punting tight ends and waiting on, like, I got Jonnu Smith in the 15th round. I just selected Noah Gray in the 19th. I'll probably drop a couple others, because realistically, if I don't have to set my lineup, I like Noah Gray. If Kelsey missed 2 weeks, you know what I mean? He would have like a top 8 level projection. Or, I mean, Jonnu Smith was literally what, the tight end 4 in fantasy last year? I want to say, tight end 4.
No, there's in best ball. It's so easy. Like, and that'll be my strategy going into underdog drafts this year too. Is I honestly just think 3 tight end builds where you take late tight ends is honestly just the play in underdog as well.
It just feels so 3. Like, even like, for example, the tight ends that went off the board in the 19th round, I actually think all of them were solid picks, because you're looking at, obviously I got Gray, Dalton Schultz went off the board. I was actually really looking at Theo Johnson had he fallen back, because I do think, especially in a best ball, you get a 6'6", 265 pounder with a quarterback upgrade, whether it's Russell Wilson or a rookie, really like that. And then, I mean, we see Michael Mayer, for example, going off the board at the 19.9. What if he gets traded at the draft?
Yeah, I actually do think he's going to get traded. And I was pissed when he went off the board, because I was debating.
I thought I was going to be able to get him back.
Him and Sinnott, I was actually debating. And same with, I can't remember what running back I took in the round before, but I was debating. Or no, I took Malik Washington slightly before him, I think. But anyways, we're going on a side tangent. Appreciate everybody who submitted teams to this video. Again, we will give out a couple of vouchers every single episode as we get transitioned into this new format. Of course, if you do actually pay for a review, we will, obviously, you're going to skip the line completely and you're going to guaranteed be in the next video. But we are going to send out some vouchers because we are transitioning how we're doing this. Again, leave us any feedback down below. Do you like this format? Do you not like this format? So on and so forth. We will get to all of your comments and really appreciate the some of the comments that you guys left on the last video. So leave down below your Flock Fantasy usernames. Again, you have had to use promo code FSE, so make sure that you guys do that. If you are new subscribers over on Flock Fantasy with an annual subscription, you also do get a free team review voucher, which will guarantee that you are on our next episode, whether we pick you or not. And we might even end up picking you on top of you being getting that free voucher. So that would actually give you 2. And of course, on our site, we have our Dynasty rankings, our Dynasty draft guide. Version 2.0 is coming out on April 1st, which has 65 prospects in it, write-ups, grades, player cards, all that good stuff. Prospect model stuff going to go through a big time update as well, because the final pro days are happening for the rest of this week. And then we'll have all the numbers on everybody and we'll know exactly what's going on. A lot of prospects decided not to test, but we'll have to just roll with what we got. Cam Scattaboo, for example, I know didn't actually do anything at the combine outside of some jumps or whatever.
Yeah. And then one in particular actually addressed that he ran his 40 with, I believe, a strained hamstring. Because I mean, when you first saw the Xavier Restrepo number in the 4.8s, like the first reaction I had is like, oh, like he must have pulled something. Like,
yeah, he was listed as 4.46 on NFL Draft Buzz, and I thought that was pretty accurate, to be honest. I thought he was going to run low 4.5s at worst.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. It's like even like worst case scenario, it's like, oh, it's a 4, 5, 6 slot. Like how many 4, 5, 6 slots we see every year that are just intangible guys that work out across the middle of the field. Like,
yeah, exactly. But anyways, we'll head out of here. Again, appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. This will be the last time you see me in Mexico. I am traveling back to Canada tomorrow. So it's been a good month, had a lot of fun, but we will be back to the ice cold of Canada. I believe it's relatively warm now by the time I get back, but it's not perfect yet either.
Yes, sir. But yeah.
Anyways, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.